Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Susan Schwartz, and this is Hello Kindergarten. This is a program that Pasadena Education Network, PEN, has done for a couple of years now. We've done versions of it over many years. And we are going to be recording and also sharing, we'll share the link and the slides and in some handouts in a follow-up email. So if by any chance you didn't sign up for this, but just found the link to the Zoom meeting on our website, you can go ahead and put your email in the chat, and that way you'll get the follow-up email with all the links and the resources and so forth. So, and I'll mention this again when we get to the end. We're not going to have our chat room open during the presentation, but we will open it towards the end so that you can put in questions, and we'll try to save time at the end for question and answer. I do just want to say that we're really going to try to focus on just us getting prepared for the transition to kindergarten. In terms of all the nuts and bolts and nitty-gritty details about how the things are going to work in come August when the school year starts, there will be a program offered by the district probably in July, and that will also be recorded and available, which will really focus on that stuff. And they're waiting a little bit later than usual to do that so that they have the most up-to-date information about everything. And we will post about that and publicize that on our calendar and our newsletter and our Facebook page and all that. So, so this again just is really going to focus on preparing ourselves and our kids, but mostly ourselves, for the transition to kindergarten. So I introduced myself briefly. For those of you who are not familiar with Pasadena Education Network, we're an independent nonprofit. A network of about 2,000 families who either have children in the schools in Pasadena Unified already, K through 12, or who are considering their options for PUSD. And our mission is to promote participation in public education for the benefit of all children served by PUSD. And we try to keep families informed and connected so that they can effectively support their own children's education, but also work together as a community supporting great outcomes for all kids. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for just a minute, and then we're going to have a few introductions. While I'm doing that, I'm actually going to ask our other presenters to introduce themselves. Starting with Laura Diaz, my colleague. So I'm going to go ahead and share, but hopefully her picture will still be here.
Okay.
All right.
Hello, my name is Laura Diaz-Allen, and I am Director of Parent Engagement for PEN and a mother of 2 teenagers who survived the transition to kindergarten years ago. Happy to see you here.
And Ms. Penny, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Miss Penny, Penny Magalong. Everybody calls me Miss Penny. I am a teacher at Willard IB Elementary, and I have a teenage daughter who also survived the transition to kindergarten. And we survived looking for the right school and the right fit and all of that years ago. And she's wrapping up her freshman year at Marshall. Happy to be here.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, we have Alicia.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Lands. I have a first grader now, a kindergartner last year, so I've gone through this process pretty recently. And I also have an older daughter and who attended kindergarten in a different district. And so I can speak a little bit to some of the differences that I've seen at Pasadena, as well as a recent experience with my little one.
Thanks. And Nicole.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining tonight. I'm Nikki Cobley. I'm a Pasadena parent. I have a pair of first graders who survived kindergarten at Jackson Elementary School last year and are doing virtual this year. So they're excited to go back next year.
All right. Thanks a lot. Okay, so I'm gonna take us back for a minute to, let's see, not sure how I do this. I'm gonna hide the thumbnail. I'm going to take us back to April, when there was a story in the LA Times that caught my eye about the children returning to school in LAUSD as it happened. It was happening at the same time in Pasadena this past April for their first days of on-campus instruction after having done remote learning for most of the year. And the story opened with the staff member is doing the mandatory health checks as children are arriving on campus. And she wanted to find out if they had any symptoms, make sure they were healthy. And she would ask how they were feeling. And the answer she kept getting was excited. And I just kind of love that. So I thought, we're going to just very briefly, just to warm us up, we're going to break out into small groups. And just in a word or two, how are you feeling about your child starting school this fall? I'm going to stop sharing so we can do the breakout rooms. And when you come back from the breakout rooms, we'll share out a little bit. And I'll just remember, when you come back, you have to re-choose your language at the bottom of the screen. So Jeff, you want to split us up here? Hi, we're back. We're coming back slowly but surely. So just be sure to click on the interpretation channel that you want, English or Spanish, as we're all coming back. I think I see a few new faces. If you've just joined us, since we got back from our breakout rooms, you will need to go to the bottom of the screen, and on the little globe, just choose your language, English or Spanish, that you prefer. We have an interpreter providing interpretation. So even if you are listening in English, you want to choose that language at the bottom. And again, I'll just mention that we are recording, so we will have a link and lots of other information, handouts, resources that we will send out in a follow-up email a couple of days from now. So if you didn't, by any chance, I think most people signed up on our website and we have your email, but if for some reason you didn't, you'll be able to share that with us in the chat when we wrap up, and that way you'll get all the follow-up information and materials. So let's see, where are we? I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and we'll get into our presentation. And let's see, make sure I go to the right place. Okay, that worked. Oops. Okay, so tonight what we're going to do is we're going to spend a little time with our kindergarten teacher, Ms. Penny from Willard, who's going to give us a little bit of insight into how kinder teachers orient and assess their new students, sort of how they, what it is that kindergarten teachers are doing in the first few weeks of school. So you have a little bit of insight into that. And then Laura is going to talk about how we prepare to embrace this transition. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some tips for engaging effectively with your child's teacher, with your school, and becoming part of the parent community. And then we'll go and open it up to your questions. So I think we're going to disable the chat for the moment, but just sort of keep note, if you have questions, we'll open that up after the presentation so that you can put any specific questions that you have in the chat. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Penny to tell us a little bit about the teacher's role and what happens during the first few weeks of kindergarten.
Okay, the first few weeks of kindergarten for your children begin several weeks before they get there, because we are so excited to have them come. You have no idea. It's like a party. We are so excited. But what will happen for your students is really we spend the first, I would say, solid 2 weeks orienting your students to the school routines, the campus itself. And so we always make sure that every day students know what to expect. The most important thing is that the routine is predictable. And so that gets introduced every day. We refer to it several times a day, so there's not any surprises. We want our young students to feel very comfortable and safe. Safe is the most important thing. They need to know that they're in a safe place. They're so smart that within just a couple of days, they're saying, oh, Miss Penny, it's time for this. They can start to predict their own schedule. So there's always a classroom tour where everything is in the classroom, where they should put their things. There's always a school tour, so they know where the front office is. They know where the nurse's office is. They know where the library is, the cafeteria. They know who they should see if they end up down the wrong hallway or something, because sometimes someone takes a left turn and they know they can go and speak to that person. So they know all the people they can speak to and where they can go. School tour, classroom tour, and everything is predictable. As far as in the classroom, there will be lots of observations going on. There will be notations being taken. A teacher really wants to know kind of where everybody is at. So we will do some assessments like checking numbers and letters, checking colors and shapes. The only reason we do this, it's not because your child needs to show up at kindergarten knowing X, Y, and Z. It's so that when I get to work with them in a small group or one-on-one, I have the materials I need to teach them exactly where they're at. So I want to make sure that I'm bringing something that's applicable to your child. So that's why we assess right away, kind of get a feel for what people need, get to really know the students. There's a lot of conversations about, what do you like? What are the things that interest you? Because we honestly, truly want to know the children and want them to know that we're interested in them. And we truly are interested in them. So the assessments are necessary. It also gives us an opportunity to see if there's anything that the child may need or something that I need to speak with the parent about. So we're just constantly observing, taking notes, meeting with the children, assessing the children so that we can provide them exactly what they need right where they're at.
Let me just ask, do you encourage parents, or do you often get from parents even before their children start, or maybe right at the beginning of the year, information about, like, are there things that the parents should be communicating to the teacher even just at the beginning?
Absolutely. On my first day in my classroom, I can't speak for all kindergarten teachers, but there's a lot of things to sign. So be prepared on your first day that you may have a few things to sign. One of the things I kind of ask for is I have a questionnaire. And really one of the most important things I want to know is, are there allergies of any kind? Now, when you fill out your registration information, the school will definitely already have that on record. But for my own personal little binder that I keep, I want to know. So there'll be a small questionnaire to answer, usually about allergies, preferences. Sometimes we get special requests that, are very easy to make sure that everybody's needs are met. We want to know about the children. We want to know everything we can. And so we want to ask questions up front about what we might need to know right away to make sure that everyone is comfortable.
Okay. I know that some schools do what they call their boohoo breakfast or anything like that, something like that. Who's doing the boohooing? Is it the kids or the parents?
It's the parents. The breakfast is for the parents. I know that our principal, she conducts her Boohoo Yahoo breakfast. And it is, parents usually come in on the first day of school, spend about 15 or so minutes filling out the forms, saying goodbye, asking those last minute questions, and just kind of getting the reassurance that they need. And I certainly don't mind it. I've totally been there. So I walked away from my little baby, in kindergarten before too. So I get it. But then our principal invites all the parents to come and join her for a breakfast. And there, more questions can be asked, anything you need to just help you feel welcome and comfortable and know that your child is definitely in a safe place.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna switch gears a little bit, and we're gonna take it over to Laura Diaz, who's gonna really just get into the how we prepare to embrace this transition, which is sort of the meat of what we're here for. So Laura, you want to take it from here?
Sure. So as you can see, teachers seem like not only are they excited for kids to come back, but that they know what they're doing. And, they have their classroom set up, they have strategies and routines and things that they do. So for some reason, when my kid was transitioning to kindergarten, I wasn't so sure that the teachers would know what to do. And they did, they absolutely did. But I was anxious about it, right? And so now in retrospect, I'm thinking if I had to give advice to myself back then, I would have said that the first thing I needed to do to get my child ready for kinder was to get myself ready for kinder. I had to, right? I had to, first of all, understand that just because I was feeling anxious and I was feeling like my child was moving to another country as opposed to just going down the street to a school. I mean, I was really having problems with letting go of this child. Just because I was feeling all these things did not mean that my child was feeling all these things. My kid was ready to go. He was excited to go to a big kid school and learn to read and do all these things. So I think, again, one of the things that I will let you know as a parent who's been there is that it is hard for most of us, especially when it's the first time we're sending a child to school, especially when we've just spent a year mostly cocooned together. And so that separation will be a little tough. And our main job is going to be to not let our child feel all of our anxiety. They'll feel a little bit maybe, but just not all of it, right? Let them have the space to feel excited about it and not feel worried about us. Sometimes they know that we're upset and they feel like, well, I can't go to school because my mom's going to be upset, right? So that's the number one thing, just to get that under control. The second thing that I think is important to consider is that, especially if our child has not been to a school outside of the home or a full-time school like preschool, that our home may not be as ready as we might want it to be for our child to go to kinder. And this is what I mean by that. I found out when my kids started kinder that we were supposed to be there every day, not just some days when we felt like it, like in preschool, but every day and at the same time every day. My kid had the same realization that this is what was going to happen from now on, right? And so in order to make this happen, to get out of the house every day at the same time and get to school at the same time with everything we needed, and then myself ready for work, we needed some systems in place. We needed to have a space where we were going to put our things every day, so we weren't looking for shoes. And I don't just mean my kid, me too. Like, we had to have places where things would be in the morning: the purse, the keys, the shoes, the child's backpack, the lunchbox, whatever it was. We had to find a spot. Not that our house had to all of a sudden be perfectly organized, no, but some things had to have a place where they lived every day. And in order to get my child to wake up every day, not overly tired and not overly grumpy, I had to make sure that my child was getting enough hours of sleep every night, right? And I found out, I'm going to be a little bit all over the place, but I found out from talking to teachers that they didn't care so much that children knew how to read or count to 100 before the year started. But there were certain things that they were hoping children would be. And one of them was that they were hoping children would have slept enough, right? And ideally have had a meal at home or have a time at school to have a meal. So they wanted a child who was ready to learn. And so what we had to do at home is revisit our routines, as in get some. So we had to figure out, okay, if my child needs 10 to 12 hours of sleep, which is what kindergartners need, and my particular child needed actually 12 hours because I'm that lucky, right? So I had to figure out, okay, school starts, let's say at 8. It's going to take me this long to drive to school. It's going to take my child this long to eat breakfast and get ready. So we had to kind of work ourselves backward and then figure out, okay, if my child, say, needs to be up by 7, then that means they need to go to sleep at 7 p.m., which sounded insane, especially when it's the middle of the summer and the sun is out until 9 or whatever it is, right? So we had to figure out how we were going to make this happen every day. And it wasn't easy. And personally, for me, what helped was to have a dinner time that didn't vary. And so whether we were home or somewhere else, my child was going to have dinner at 6:15, for example. And so I found personally that that anchored the rest of the evening and made us get out of the house on time without people yelling or crying the next day. Just being completely honest. Okay. I'm not going to say that it happens beautifully every day, but as long as we had a routine, we were more likely to have this happen. So I will be including some handouts, like, you can have this and you can cut it and make your own routine. There's another one where you can put the times at which you would like things to happen. And you can play with those. So I don't want to go over all this in detail, but because children usually don't know how to read yet, pictures are helpful. And so just having pictures in the order in which you hope things will happen is a really helpful thing that you can do. And they can help cut it, they can help glue it. And, so that is something you can have visually for your kid. And then for yourself, another thing that I had to do was to actually set some alarms on my phone. So there was an alarm for getting up, an alarm for leaving. There were a few alarms, and my kids knew which one was the alarm for leaving. So I wasn't the bad guy saying it was time to go. The phone was the bad guy saying it was time to go, right? So routines are important, having a place for everything, kids getting enough sleep. So what do we mean by having a child be ready to learn? First, like I said, they have to be there every day or they can't learn. They have to be on time, because often what happens is the first few minutes of the day, the teacher will set the tone for the day. There might be circle time in which we talk about the day of the week and what the weather's like and what everybody, had to eat for dinner, whatever it might be. And there might be some instructions. And so if your child misses that and they come into the classroom, they're already a little off, right? All their friends know what to do and they don't. So it's helpful to be on time. Again, awake. Lots of little kiddos fall asleep mid-morning because they're just tired. Ideally, they're not hungry or thirsty. And so every family figures out a different way of doing this. For my kids, I had to make sure they had some protein in the morning. When they just had cereal with lots of sugar, which was their preference, they tended to crash mid-morning. And a good frame of mind. So maybe when you're on your way out to school is not the time to, talk about how they didn't do their homework yesterday. Ideally, it's pleasant, right? And so these are just, if we give them confidence that they're ready to learn. Basically, it's a list. Oh, there we go. There's a few more things here that I want to go over. The other one is self-help skills. Now, kids are at different places with this, and some are very good at getting themselves dressed, and some can even tie their shoes. Other kids, not so much. And so it's something that we can do during the summer, and I'll go more in detail about that. But if I forget, do we have the shoes here, Susan, or somewhere else?
Let's see. I think they were on that first.
Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. That's fine. So that's fine. Let's go back then. Okay. One of the things I figured out at some point was that when I went shoe shopping for my children, I wanted them to have everything new, right? And so I bought them their first pair of shoes that they could tie by themselves, except for they did not know how to tie their shoes by themselves. And I would tie their shoes in the morning, and then at the end of the day, their shoes were still tied. I never realized that the teacher had to tie those shoes a couple of times each day. And then I did some math. I'm like, if each teacher is tying my kids' shoes at least twice, and they have 26 children, how many shoes do they tie that day, and when do they teach? So it occurred to me that one of the things that we can do for teachers more than anything else is buy our kids either slip-ons or Velcro. Right, Miss Penny? Yeah, you happy about that? Okay. So unless they've learned to do it well.
Can I interject and say tying shoes is not a kindergarten skill?
Okay, right?
It's not. I mean, developmentally, it's not. If your kid can, great, but it is not a kindergarten skill.
No. My kids were, I think, second grade, if I'm lucky, when they did it. They ideally will be able to listen and follow instructions. Most kids will do pretty well. Some will struggle a little bit, but it is helpful if at home we've been getting them trained to listen and follow instructions, right? As opposed to doing everything for them, which sometimes with the first child we might be tempted to do. And then able to sit still and keep hands to themselves. This is really hard. A lot of kids can't do it, but we can let them have a little practice at home and remind them. Okay. So
yeah, I think before we go away from this slide, I'd like to just give our other Ms. Penny and Nikki and Alicia a chance to chime in, in terms of your experience with these things. I know, some of them are harder than others, and, it depends on the kid, and what works for one kid doesn't work for another kid. So anybody who wants to chime in with what your experience has been in terms of helping your kids be ready and make this transition. Nikki or Alicia, you want to share anything or give your perspective on that?
I can go ahead and share something. One of the best pieces of advice that I got was that the kindergarten kids, when it's snack time or it's lunchtime, all they want to do is play. They don't want to eat, but they crash. And so one of the best things you can do is pack snacks that have the biggest bang for the buck, like a cheese stick where it's really quick, lots of protein, and they can eat it fast and run because that's what they want to do. So
power snack.
Pay attention to the snacks and make sure it's something they love, otherwise they won't need it either. Yeah. School offers lunch, take it, not having to pack the lunch. And then the kids just have to eat what's available.
Okay. How about you, Alicia? You have anything to throw in there about?
Yeah, the sleep thing. The good news is kindergarten will tire your kids out. And so even though it sounds really difficult, and I completely agree with the sun being out and trying to put them to bed, it's hard. Even if you even if they are resistant to going to bed when the sun is out before kindergarten, they're going to crash. And if you can keep them awake until bedtime, they'll go to sleep much earlier than they might have the week before school started. And I think by like the second week of school, they really find a new routine. And so I really like that advice about getting a lot of sleep. And the one other thing that I noticed is that my kids like their routines to be broken up sometimes, which is not what I expected from a routine. And I just mean one of my daughters really likes to pick the order that she does the things so that she feels like she's participating in the process. We're going to see lots of that in her lifetime, I'm sure, but it doesn't always have to be, exactly the way you might have done it. If they'll do parts of it their own way, I've had to be a lot more flexible than I thought I would be if I designed the process and I was doing it myself, right? And so this is a great list of things that the kids, you'll figure it out as a family and it'll be okay, but don't be afraid to try some things that are different than the first way that you think of as the parent.
Any comments on the sitting still and hands to self, Ms. Penny or anybody else? I know that's especially the sitting still can be really hard. And any thoughts about that?
That can be a challenge. But you know what? Because we're teachers and we know, I don't like to sit that long. And for kindergarten, it really gets broken up. There's not a lot of just sitting there. There's a lot of, up and down, pair up with these people and go talk about this and then come back to the rug. But there is going to be time to sit. And we do lots of little like hand playing things that kind of help them busy themselves with their own hands. And, we tell them we have a calm mind, a calm heart, and a calm body, and do things like, put your friends all together and place them in your lap. It takes practice. It takes a lot of practice, and it's okay. It's okay if nobody's expecting perfection here. Over time, as the routine goes along, they get better and better at this. They get better and better. And when somebody does accidentally, on purpose, get hit on the rug, which happens, it's addressed right away. We talk about being safe. Being safe is number one, and it is addressed. So, but one thing I did really want to jump on, Laura, thank you so much for saying how there is this realization that happens that it's like, I love school, I love school. Wait a minute, we have to do this every day. And after the first weekend, like they go to school. This school year is a little bit different, where we're starting on a Thursday. What? Thursday, Friday, and then a weekend. Monday morning's going to come around and you might hear, I hate school. You might hear that, and it will be shocking. And you might be tempted to call your teacher and say, my child who has always loved school does not love school anymore. Well, it's the routine. They're getting used to it. You might hear that after Christmas break. You might hear it after spring break, probably not after spring break, but earlier in the year when we have these breaks, you might have some resistance. Even though, kindergarten is the best place on earth, being with you is better. It's always better. So, just be prepared that you might hear those words and not to be too alarmed. But obviously, if something serious has happened, do not hesitate to bring it up with the teacher or the school.
And that's a good transition for what I want to talk about next, which is sort of what is our role as parents once our kids are in school. And so we'll have more chances. I'm going to keep my co-presenters here just in case somebody wants to chime in as I'm presenting, and then we'll have time, as I said, at the end for more of your questions. So I want to talk a little bit about, we often hear that parent involvement is really critical to school success, but what does that mean? And involvement can sometimes sound like we have to be there on the scene every day, or that somehow we should be trying to micromanage our child's educational experience. And so we sometimes like the word engaged, which at least to me conveys that we're paying attention, we're ready to step up as needed, but we're still able to step back and give our children space to grow and become more independent, and also to respect the professionalism of our children's teachers, the school administrator, and other staff. So I want to talk a little bit more about what role we play as parents. And I'm sorry I put a bunch of words on this slide, which was a lot more than I meant to leave, but I shouldn't read my slide, but I will go over it. So I think, the main things that really are important in the parent-teacher relationship are, stay in communication. You'll get information from your child's school, from the teacher. Look at it, listen to it. If it's a voice message, it may come in the form of an email or something that comes home, in your child's backpack. Obviously, look at those things and know what's going on. There are going to be times when you think, I didn't hear about this. When did this, I've been paying attention. I've been reading all the things. That happens. But you do want to make sure that your teacher and the school has your current contact information if anything changes. if you have an old email for some reason that you don't use or look at as often that got in there, and you're not getting things, go in and ask and find out, I seem not to be getting all the communications. Let's make sure you have the right information for me. And then on the other direction, find out how your child's teacher prefers to receive communication from you. There's an opportunity typically to leave a voice message through the school, or certainly to email. I know that there are a whole bunch of systems. There's something called Canvas, which you'll learn about later, not in this presentation, which facilitates those communications. But find out what your child's teacher's preferences are. And what I'm thinking about in particular is in the morning when all the kids are coming into class, if you've got something burning to talk to your child's teacher about, that's probably not when they're most ready to hear, an in-depth and really pay attention to what you have to say and what your concerns are. So, it may be that you hand the teacher a note that says, I really, have some things I need to talk to you about. Can we set up a time to talk later today, or, whatever it may be. So, just be respectful of all the kids that they have and all the families that they have. And they do want to hear from you if there's something going on. If you have questions, you should definitely ask them. But just try to figure out early on what's the best way to do that. What's the most effective way to do that? I don't know, Ms. Penny, do you have anything to add to that? Is that your...
Yeah, most teachers will give you on the first day of school, if not beforehand, they'll give you all the ways to contact them. It may be email, it may be call the school and leave a voicemail. It may be something called Remind, which is very, very quick. It's like a text message. Teachers like to use Remind a lot. So yeah, just find out which one is best. And teachers are very responsive. We really do want to know everything. We're super nosy. So tell us everything.
Okay. And the next point that I want to touch on is really teachers are professionals. All the school staff are there as professionals. And it's, I think, kind of easy to forget that sometimes, just because you are the person who knows your own child and his or her circumstances best. So you are the expert when it comes to your child in that sense. But your child's teacher sees things that you don't, sees your child in a different context, has training to see, things that might not be obvious to you or apparent to you at home and in other settings. So, and as I said, the teacher is also working to understand and meet the needs of all the children in the classroom. So they've got a lot of different things in play. So just remind yourself that is, it's Ms. Penny, it's Ms. Diaz, it's whatever it is. And they will call you Ms. Schwartz or Ms. Diaz, or whatever your last name is, most likely, Mr. Wilkerson. So, just be aware of that and think about the kind of time that when you're asking a question, it's important to get your questions answered. It's important if there's something that the teacher needs to know about how your child is doing. Those communications are important, but also time is a hugely important and scarce resource for teachers. So just be mindful of that fact when you have a question or you have something that you need to bring to their attention. And then I think, in terms of the role that we play as parents, the most important role we play is actually the role we play at home. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. In terms of actually, if you're somebody who has the time and inclination to volunteer at school or in the classroom, or even, from a distance, be sure you ask, what does the teacher need and want? If you have something to give that is, they may not know about, you can certainly let them know, I have such and such, would that be helpful? Or, I could come in and talk about something. Would that be something you would like to have happen? But, again, remember, they've got a lot of things going on in that classroom. And so when you want to volunteer, that be sure to defer to what it is that the teacher is asking for, needs, wants, can use, rather than just kind of saying, well, here I am with all these all these great things that you're going to get whether you want it or not. And I think the other thing in terms of volunteering is that most of our schools are very open to parents playing a role on campus. I don't know exactly what that will look like in the fall, given circumstances and public health, but we'll see. So we're not going to try to guess that at the moment. We will share some resources about volunteering with you in the follow-up email. But the other thing to keep in mind is that in terms of volunteering in the classroom, the teachers are setting up those routines and getting their kids oriented during the first several weeks of school. And often they would rather you were not there in the classroom during those first couple of weeks, just because they need that space to just kind of set up the routines and the structures without so-and-so's parent being right there. When that happens. Anything, Nikki or Alicia, anything to say about the parent-teacher relationship in your experience? Anyone want to chime in?
I enjoyed, I think the first time that the volunteers were needed, it was at Christmas, or like for the little holiday celebration. And that was great. And I actually volunteered in both my kids' classes. I separated them in kindergarten. That's a whole nother story. They are now together and will be together. But it was neat to do that because I got to see all the different kids in their class and get to know their personalities. And it was also, I tended to enjoy doing drop-offs because I got to meet many of the other parents who sort of lingered with their kids. So building that parent community was really valuable because I got to know the parents of the kids that my kids became close with. And then volunteering as far as at a higher level, I chose to join the school site council right away because I wanted to see how the school basically was run. And that's a committee that is done with the principal, with some teachers, with some other parents. And it was a great way to meet the principal and have actually like face-to-face time with the principal and learn about the school and get to know several of the teachers, all while doing something useful for the school community.
We're going to actually come back to that, ways to get involved, in a minute. So thank you for foreshadowing that. I'm going to actually go to the next slide, but again, if Alicia or Nikki jump in if you have something else to add. I'm going to just take this down so I'm not covering up my screen. So one of the things that Laura and I put together early on, I think Laura put this together actually, was this idea of parent engagement being like a pyramid, where the foundation and most important thing is what you do to support your child at home. And these are the things that Laura was talking about earlier in terms of meeting those basic needs, setting expectations, so that you expect her or him to do his best or her best, and to listen to the teacher, use their words, respect their classmates, and let you know what's going on with them. And then I think, so all the things that we've kind of talked about so far, letting the teacher know if you have a question or concern, listening to any observations the teacher may have, and then working together to determine how best to support your child's growth and learning. All of that kind of really is this foundational sort of this orange piece, the bottom of our pyramid here, and really the most important ways that we get involved. Beyond that, there are ways to volunteer with the classroom, and helping with chaperoning a field trip, for example, or helping out if there's a school event. Maybe the teacher needs some help putting some materials together. So lots of things that can happen at the classroom level. And then beyond that, sort of what Nikki was referring to, there are ways to get involved more at the school level, where you get to know a little bit more about how things work, and who does what, and where decisions get made about things at the school level. And then all the way up to, district engagement. I mean, we have parents who started with Penn 12 years ago and are board members now. So, that can happen. It doesn't happen to everybody, and nor should it. And you shouldn't, and I think that the important thing here is that you should not feel like you need to be one of these parents who is doing all the things. If you're doing the things that support your child, and doing them in such a way that is not detracting from what any of the other children are getting in the classroom, that is the most important thing. And I think as we do some parent leadership workshops at Penn, and we'll have some of those in the fall. But really, you're kind of, I think that one of the most important things you do as you become more familiar with the school and become a leader at your school is you're really helping all the other parents to make sure that the other parents are able to do the things that support their children, that they have the information that they need, that they know how to reach, out to staff and work with staff, that they're getting the communications and all that. But I am going to talk a little bit about something else that Nikki touched on, which is the gift of a school community. So, we say that we're sending our children to school so that they can learn and grow up to lead full lives. But the fact is that schools also bring families together. And getting involved at your child's school supports the school's success in several ways, but also really is very fulfilling. So, getting involved in the community, it is a way of harnessing that commitment of the larger community to support the school, its staff, and its kids. I mean, you may be helping out with somebody else's kid doing a project at some point, or doing something that helps the custodial staff, to be able to do their job better. And it means that more people are informed to have a voice in the decisions that affect our students. And then, I think this is sort of almost the most important thing. It creates opportunities for us to get to know each other and to really appreciate each other's unique gifts and shared humanity in ways that we might otherwise miss out on. And I think that, there are a lot of opportunities to get to know your child's classmates and their families. Nikki mentioned, if you can hang around a little after drop off, you may get a chance to talk to some other parents. If your child is in an after-school program, there are parents who work during the day who you might not see on campus, but you might see them coming to pick their kids up at after school. And particularly if your child is in after school, they may make some new friends in that setting, kids who aren't in their own classroom. And, it's nice to be able to say hi and get to know the parents of those students. So I think that, the only things, I'm not going to go into all the different school groups, the different parent organizations that are mentioned here. We will share a handout about that, and do more to kind of let you know about those different individual groups and what they do. But I do want to just give some suggestions for making the most of these kind of community building opportunities. The first thing is, we naturally tend to gravitate towards people who we perceive as being like us. And I mean, that's just sort of something that most people do, not everybody. But so I'd urge you to step outside your circles of similarity to meet people who you don't immediately recognize as having a lot in common with you. Because one thing you have in common is your children go to this school. Or there are people who are working at this school who are taking care of your child and other children. And so that is immediately something that we all have in common. And from that, it's an opportunity to meet and get to know people far beyond the people that you might meet in the rest of your day-to-day life. And that's a really rich opportunity. The other thing to remember is that relationship building takes time. If you're somebody who naturally tends to jump in and take charge, you might want to sit back and listen and practice being a follower for a while. If you're someone who tends to hang back, push yourself to show up when you can and find ways to participate that give you a chance to connect with other parents and caregivers. If you're one of those people who is in a position to bridge different groups within the larger school community, that is a fabulously important thing that you can bring to your community to help build those bridges and help people connect. And then I would say, you know, that if you're one of those folks who has the time and inclination to get very involved on campus, that's great. And again, as I said before, be especially mindful of, you know, you don't want to slip into that kind of colleague relationship with staff and the principal. You know, even if you're calling them by their last name, you sort of have a first name relationship. And I think other parents feel that sometimes and are may feel a little bit excluded when they see that a parent has that relationship. So it's kind of a, you know, it's kind of a fine line. I mean, you are going to get to know this community, but you also want to just be mindful of those kinds of, you know, people's professionalism and confidentiality of other families, and just, you know, making sure that in filling a space or a role that seems like it needs to be filled, that you're not inadvertently making it harder for somebody a little less assertive to get to be in that space at the same time. And, you know, to you know, put that energy into getting to know families and caregivers and parents that you might not otherwise get to know. It's really one of the most valuable things I think that we can do to help build community. So I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see, I'm going to go, I guess we're ready for questions, and I am going to, what am I doing? I'm going to stop sharing. There we go. And I'm going to make sure that the chat is now, I think it's open. Everybody should be able to, oops, there we go. Everybody should be able to put a question into the chat. Or if you're more comfortable just saying it, you can use the little hand raise tool or just unmute yourself. We're not a huge group. I'm happy to let us do that. But I just want to open it up to your questions. See if I'm missing anything. Oh, the other thing I'm going to do while we're here is I'm going to put a link in the chat to our survey. So we have a participant evaluation survey. We really appreciate when people kind of let us know how we're doing. So I will put that link in the chat.
Susan?
Yeah.
Well, we wait for people to think about what they want to ask. To say, which is that as we're getting ready for the year to start, one of the things we can do as part of our routine is to select books that talk about going to kindergarten to read to our children. I remember I had one about dinosaurs going to school, and it was really funny. And so that's one way in which we can talk about kinder in different ways. I will suggest, and I want to say this as part of the routines, because I figured this out the hard way, that if we want our kids to go to sleep, then the book, we only have time to read one book, then you make that book be the book where all the animals end up asleep at the end of the book, right? Like the calm, you know, like everyone put on their pajamas and went to sleep. If you have more time, then you can, you know, let your children select a book of their choosing and maybe include one about going to kindergarten. And then you end with a book where, you know, it's Goodnight Moon or whatever, so they get sleepy. So I figured that out the hard way because I read them some exciting books and they weren't going down. So I'll send, as part of the links that you'll get, I'll send one with some books that kids like at this age.
Okay. We do have a question about how does the bathroom work for kindergartners? Do they need to be able to wipe? That is a good question. I'm going to throw that to you, Ms. Penny.
Okay. Yeah, it's they do need to be able to wipe. I cannot do that for them as much as, believe me, I would like to help out in that some situations. If it is a very serious problem, we can always make arrangements. Our nurse's office does have a restroom. If there is a child that does have a real severe problem with that, we may have to have that child use the restroom in the nurse's office. She can help in those situations, but yeah, it is expected that they know how to take care of their body.
I will say that it's also probably a good idea to send extra clothing for your children. Often schools have extra clothing, but they run out of boys' pants for some reason. So send for your child, and if you have extra, send for other kids. We went shopping at Goodwill at one point because they were going to rip those pants anyway, and so I bought extras. I remember my child was completely potty trained, and I got a call in kindergarten that he had wet his pants, and I had to come back from downtown LA and take care of that. So at this age, sometimes they're so excited, they're playing, they forget that they have to pee and they don't quite make it to the bathroom. So yes, work on these skills, but also have a plan B, and that it may happen. I think that's all I want to say about that.
Yeah. And then the follow-up question on that was, can a child ask to go to the bathroom during class? Is it only at break times?
No, we want you to use the bathroom when your body needs to use the bathroom. Especially if you are asking to leave the carpet or leave the table and go use the restroom, yes, please go do that. So yes, it is definitely permissible to go when you need to go. It is encouraged to go at recess. Teachers are reminding students. I build in a time that we all use the restroom and wash our hands and get water. I build that into my daily schedule, but always at break time, use the restroom, get some water, wash your hands. So there's a lot of reminders, because exactly what Laura just said, they start playing and they simply forget until it's too late. And then they're running and it's too late. So I know I keep I asked my parents to bring a change of clothes in like a Ziploc bag. And so I just keep those in the classroom. And then at the end of the year, I just send them home.
And bathrooms are mostly in or adjacent to the kinder classrooms?
At Willard, the bathrooms are in the classroom. I believe that almost every, if not all PUSD elementary schools, kindergartners are usually using their own bathroom, and it's nearby kindergarten.
Yeah, but it's not always in the classroom. So I know for some schools, if they have to leave the classroom, they send two children. So they send them as buddies. So if you have a kid like mine who went to the bathroom because he didn't want to be in the classroom, and and the buddy has to leave the classroom every time your child has to go, that may be a separate conversation. Just bear in mind that if your teacher says that your kid's going to the bathroom a lot, it may or may not be a physical thing. It may be that that's just their little strategy. So.
All right. Other questions? Oh, we had a question earlier about, now I'm trying to remember, I made a note where I started to. So there was a question about after school programs. And I know that we will share links, I think, for the information about the after school programs in the follow-up email, because there are, I think it probably is better to try to sign up for that before school starts, not right before school starts, but sooner rather than later. So we'll share those links with everybody. And you should be getting information, in the summer from your school, communication from the principal or from the school about, kind of what to expect, anything that you need to know. Most schools have some kind of dress code or uniform policy, but it's not like you need to get a specific uniform from a specific place. It's more just like, you can go to Goodwill or you can go to Target or whatever and get the khakis and a collared shirt or something like that. So it's pretty basic. I see a
Before
question
we
about,
move on, Susan,
yes.
okay, I just totally lost my train of thought. But yes, uniforms. My neighbor told me this when I was getting started. She said, buy more pants than you think you need because they will get them dirty, and they will rip their knees. And so buy pants, like if your school has them wear khakis, buy them so that they have reinforced knees, and buy more than think you need. And if you have a child who's sensitive to labels or textures or whatever, the used pants are a good idea because they're already worn and softer. So that's just an extra thing. And shirts, if you have a choice of uniform shirts, I would say either get the dark one or get a white one only if there's nothing printed on it so you can bleach it. Anything that's light will be a problem. So just little things like that. You may want to talk to older parents too to see how they handle that. And I'll come back to my other thought later.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions about snacks and eating, and so we've talked about how kids are so excited that they don't always eat when they're supposed to eat. So one question was just, are snacks only at certain times? If a kid is crashing and needs to eat something because they forgot to eat their snack at snack time, are they able to do that? Was one question, and then there's another related about that to. Recess is usually after lunch, and kids don't always eat because they're excited to go out and play. Some schools do actually do play first and then eat. But I think that depends on the school. I don't know that that's a district-wide thing. But is there any policies about when children fail to get their eating done during the eating time and need to eat at another time? I'll ask, Miss Penny.
Okay. Well, I know I can speak for our school. At their first recess, we always have a snack. Those snacks, we ask parents to bring in snacks. Sometimes it's a string cheese. Sometimes it's like a Go-Gurt. Sometimes it's goldfish crackers, but nothing with a lot of sugar in it. There's a limit on the sugar content that we can give. Lunchtime, it is very true that they do not want to eat, they want to go play. And as soon as they start seeing people finishing and lining up to go outside and play, they will dump a whole lunch in the garbage can so they can go play. We always have another afternoon break where the snack is brought out again. If a kindergartner, now this has never happened before, but if it were to happen where during at some point in the school day, a kindergartner walked up to me and said, Miss Penny, I'm really hungry. Oh my goodness, the child would definitely be getting a snack. It's not happened yet, but if it did happen, I would most definitely provide a snack right then, right there. So lunch for kindergarten is typically they're in the cafeteria or wherever they're eating for 20 minutes, and then they're playing for 20 minutes. Right now it's reverse at Willard. We play first and then we eat, but not all schools are doing the reverse lunch.
On snacks, I would just also recommend in your car, like in your glove box or whatever, just keep a box of those Cliff Z bars. And just the minute the kid gets in the car at pickup, just feed them because they probably didn't eat enough, and just feed them. Just keep, like they may want 2 or 3 of them, and it's okay because they're not eating enough.
Don't even ask about how school was until you've fed them. I'm not even kidding. I always, after a little while, learned to do that. I always had snacks in my car or in my purse if I was walking. So I don't know if all kids are like this, but mine were hungry and scary. So feed them.
Scary when hungry.
Feed them before school and after school and hope that they eat something during school. How's that?
There's a question here about, so back on the uniforms, do all POSD schools have uniforms? I think all schools have at least they might call it a dress code or policy, uniform policy, which means that it is not a required brand or anything of that sort. It's just kind of guidelines for colors and, maybe closed-toed shoes to, for safety reasons. And and it varies a little bit by school, but it's pretty basic, and it's stuff that you can get in lots of places and very inexpensively if you don't already have it. There was another question. Somebody said in a breakout room, there was a question about whether there might be the possibility of a tour of the kindergarten room prior to the start of the school year. Obviously, we're going to have to see what's possible, but I think that we've had some conversations with some of the parents at several of the schools and the PTAs about whether that's something their school is going to make make that accessible. Typically there's kind of a before, the week before the school year starts, there's an opportunity to come. You find out which teacher your child has, which classroom, and usually at that point teachers are still setting up their classrooms, so they may not really want you trooping through while they're doing that. But we'll check with schools. We'll continue to sort of check in with the schools in early August to see, if they're going to be able to offer that kind of opportunity, since that wasn't something that was possible this spring.
Can I say real quick, some of the
Sure.
schools have had in the past, before COVID, like a picnic or a welcome or something the Saturday before school started that was optional, but families could come and meet each other, and often the kindergarten teachers gave up their own time and came. That's not a uniform district policy, but there have often been events, and you get notified of those in like a couple weeks ahead of time. I don't know if that will be not possible because of COVID. I think last year our school generally does that, but last year we weren't allowed because we weren't allowed to have parents on campus, and it's not clear whether we'll be doing this for the coming year. They may have a virtual one. That's what we did last year instead, but at least it was something to see the kids' classrooms on a Zoom screen and to see some other parents and talk. So there may be a local orientation activity too.
Right. Some of the PTAs do a kinder play date or something of that nature. Yeah, I would say in general, you should be, once you're registered with the school, you should start getting some communications over the summer with, forms that you might need to fill out or sign with things, about start times and schedule and, that kind of information. You can also, I think somebody suggested this earlier, if you go to the school website, and it's just usually the schoolname.pusd.us, or you can just go to the main district website, pusd.us, and find your school's website there. And just, just sort of peruse that and look for information and who's who. The main school number is usually going to put you through to somebody in the office who can answer questions. But keep in mind that over the summer, after June, by the end of a couple of weeks after school, most of the school staff is not there. And I think the principals are typically there until the end of June, and then back at the beginning of August or the end of July. But the month of July tends to be kind of a fallow period. That's not that you're not going to find people on campus that month as a rule.
Susan, can I also
Sure.
plug on, I don't know about for the other schools, but for our school, there's a Facebook group. It's called Friends of Jackson. And that is an awesome resource because it's like people like, my daughter's entering kindergarten and she wants to be in the Girl Scouts. Is there a Girl Scout troop being formed? Or how strict is the school about the uniform policy? Or like, it's just very informal and very specific to your particular school. So see if there's a Facebook group out there.
Right. Also, another way to just connect with a parent who's currently at your child's school is to go on the Penn website and go to our under schools. There's a talk to a parent page, and we have our school ambassadors, parent ambassadors. So if you're having trouble finding that Facebook group or whatever, you feel like you might be missing something, that's another way to just sort of touch base with a parent who will know how to connect you with that information or with those resources. I'm going to just put one more time our participant evaluation survey link in the chat. I hope that you'll take a chance and or take the opportunity to take a minute or two when we're done to fill that out. That would be really helpful.
Susan,
Yeah.
so I
Go
have
ahead, Miss.
two little tips I didn't share before. One of them is, like Miss Penny said, the first couple of weeks are pretty intense. Kids are learning a lot about their new environment. And I remember once when I was starting a new job, and the first 2 weeks were orientation, and I would come home and I was fried. Expect something very similar of your children. They will be tired. It might even be overwhelming. And so don't be surprised if they crash, if they have meltdowns, and it's just what it is. And eventually they kind of get it, right? So that's one. The other is, which is a weird thing, but I tell parents to have their children carry their own backpacks. So you have them select their backpack, they're happy with it. Don't buy them a giant backpack, they don't need it. And then why do we say this? First of all, they're not heavy. They're not carrying like high school textbooks in there. They weigh nothing. They can carry it themselves. But the idea is that from now on, this is your education, right? I support you. You are the student. You are the main participant in this thing. And I am here to support you. So it sounds weird, but when I see parents carrying their children's everything, I worry about them. I worry that those are going to be the same parents that move into college dorms with their children one day, you know? So it's a little detail, but you might just get started. It's a good message for you and for your child. Weird tip.
That's good tip. All right, I'm looking to see. Yeah, so what we're gonna do is, again, I'm just gonna say, if any of you, I don't think there's anybody here, but if there's anyone here who did not sign up on our website for this program, go ahead and put your email address in the chat, just so I can make sure that you get the follow-up email. We'll include a link to the recording and also to a bunch of these resources that we've mentioned. So the sample routines, the link to information about after-school care, to volunteering, all the things. So thank you. I see I've gotten a few of those. That's great. And yeah, any other questions or concerns or issues?
Are you feeling better or worse?
I have a quick question actually. So for any of these questions that we have around after school or uniforms, or who is the best contact person at the school to ask them to send, like, I mean, during the summer? Is it the principal? Is it a kindergarten teacher that we see on the website? Or is there a specific contact, like person to reach out to?
Start with the website, I would say. So most schools have information on their website that will tell you the schedule, whether there's uniform requirement, that kind of thing. If you still have questions, well, it depends on the question, right? So for some of it, you will get a packet at some point, or you will get an email. So look out for that with more specific information. But for things that are like parent advice, like, you know, buy extra pants, things like that, that you get from parents. So look for the Facebook page or let us know that you're looking for someone at that school that you'd like to connect with. And then, you know, I don't know if Miss Penny, you have better advice.
Yeah, I would say, you know, apropos of the you know, looking for those parent communication groups, Facebook or whatever it might be, you know, take the opportunity now to check with the school and see if there is, you know, like, what's the best way. If you just called the main school number tomorrow and said, so I'm an incoming parent, what's the best way for me to, you know, just sort of be in the loop about what's going on, and, you know, with parents, with the school, what do I need to do? and find out this week before everybody goes away, you know, and make those connections through them, and then you'll be all set for after that. And always feel free to reach out to Penn if you're just really getting, not just for your school, but just if you're stuck or confused or having trouble finding and navigating something, we'll be happy to do what we can to connect you with somebody who can help. All right.
We make parting wisdom.
Yes, please.
So I want to reassure everybody that it really doesn't matter where your child starts. All kids are amazing in some areas and completely behind their peers in other areas. And the kindergarten teachers, I was going to say, are magical, but really they're incredibly highly trained professionals. And I almost wish I had more of these skills that they have so I could parent better. And they just transform your child. It's so much fun to watch. Like your kid comes in super shy. My daughter was really shy and is now so comfortable in the classroom and boisterous. And it's just amazing how the teachers just can help the kids just find who they are and learn all these things. And so wherever your child is, it's just fine and it's only going to get better.
That's an awesome note, and thank you. All right, so we're close to time. I'm not going to push us all the way to 8 o'clock because it's it's Tuesday night. But again, I hope you'll take the time to take our survey, look for an email from us in a few days with the recording and other links and so forth. And feel free to reach out if you have any other questions that come to mind or run into anything over the summer. We're around all summer, so more or less. So thank you all, and have a great summer. Have a great year. And stay in touch with Penn. Let us know how it's going, okay? That's the other thing.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. You've got it. You can do it.
Gonna be good. And thank you again to Jeff and Ada and Penny and Alicia and Nikki for joining us and helping us with this. Appreciate it.